Hey everyone, welcome. Mondays with Matt, episode 2. Matt, great to have you on. I'm going to dive right into picking up on one of your posts from last week. I kind of like to do that as a way to set the conversation. So here's one of your posts. It said, when everyone around the table looks the same, speaks the same, and thinks the same, the outcomes will also be the same. This is the current state of higher education, you say, and this is why higher education struggles to usher in real transformation. So take your first crack at unpacking that for us a little bit.
Yeah. The reason that I even think this way, this came from the fact that why are we not having change in higher ed? Everything around us is changing and nothing is changing within the walls of higher ed. If you have 5 Mad Alexes sitting around the table, we're going to think the same. We're going to talk the same. We're going to have the same experiences. We're going to be very comfortable with where we are. It's going to benefit me in the decisions that I make. So if we have the same people who are thinking the same, talking the same, they have the same motives, nothing is going to change. Incumbents love status quo. And if 5 Mad Alexes are there, that means there's 5 incumbents that are going to benefit from the same outcome that we're really driving. And so that's why I say we have to really reimagine who's around the table for us to really start to look for the transformation that's really needed inside of higher ed.
When you think about people sitting around the table in higher ed, I've got some things to share on entrepreneurial behavior, right? So if we get some time, I want to break it into that with you. But what do you see makes people so similar to each other? Like, why are they so similar in their decision making? Why are they so similar in their thought patterns, which is why everything seems to be kind of status quo compared to other industries you've seen, let's say?
Higher ed, no one goes to college thinking I'm going to become a higher ed administrator. I'm going to run a campus. Most of them, they either worked at a campus, all of a sudden they morph themselves into a career. So a lot of the people that are in higher ed have just come from within higher ed. And so
they fell in love with it. So while they were going through their own education, they fell in love with higher education. They, man, this could be where I invest my life. But then that's where they've spent all their life is kind of your point.
I'm one of those people, right? So I'm a criminal justice major. And yet my first job out of college was being a counselor in the registrar's office. And that's when I realized, wow, I could make real transformation in the lives of students. And that has been my aspiration is how do I improve students? And so I went into criminal justice thinking I was going to help the juveniles and help them because I worked at a boys club and so forth. But it shifted when I was able to say, you know what, I could do this in higher ed. And I believe people who come into higher ed are very much similar to me. And so they only know what they know.
And then you fast forward even your career in higher ed, you went from counselor to probably another role, eventually clerk, eventually registrar. Like you just kept going in that career track around a bunch of other people who were doing the same thing. And then you look up 10, 15, 20 years later and everyone, to your point, starts to look and sound the same.
And my example, I'll give you one where I started to realize that I needed outside perspective. I worked at a big state school. Policies were built on institution-centric. I went to a law school and the shift was away from institution, but to the actual law student. So I all of a sudden got a different perspective that, hey, the student is your customer. You better serve them till 8 o'clock at night because they're working during the day and they need to come and have a class here and you need to serve them. So you can't leave at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock because the time is done. That was a different perspective. It's a different culture. All of a sudden I realized, my God, what I was doing at my other campus, I have a different view. And then when I returned back to that campus to run that office that I was a clerk at, I brought that over. And it actually started to get people uncomfortable because they all of a sudden was like, well, this is not what we always did, Matt. And I'm saying, well, we should change this. And so I was very transformational in the way that I worked in my office because it took you
leaving, having an outside experience, and then coming back. That makes sense. And so your theory is that there's not enough of that going on, the moving, trying something different, being exposed to new things, or in the absence of that, bringing in fresh perspective. And that's causing some of this malaise, let's call it that.
I'll be honest. I think every role on a campus, leadership role, should have a tenure to it. You shouldn't have a registrar that sits in an office for 10 years. You shouldn't have them there for 5 years. Things are changing. And it's not just registrars. I'm not going to pick on just registrars. Financial aid officers, HR directors, you name it.
Especially advisement. My goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple reasons why I said you should have a little bit of tenure, meaning let someone have their time to really do that transformation, and then let them mentor others to come into that transformation and let them start leading.
And the fresh ideas kick in.
Fresh ideas come. And I do think there's a lot of great leaders inside of higher ed. The reality of it is I had a mentor who told me to leave her office to go to the law school. She knew that in order for me to grow, I had to move. So she said, in order to move up, you have to move out. That was what she said to me. And she said, until you move out, you won't grow and you won't move up. That has been my trajectory. So I worked at a university. I led a registrar's office where she brought me back to lead it. Eventually, I went to consulting. And what did consulting do? It opened me up to different campuses, different needs, different experiences. So while I ran the University of Illinois at Chicago's registrar's office, the way that I think about a registrar's office comes from my experiences, my perspectives, my challenges. And I don't think campuses have that today. You have the same people who've never left their office, who don't understand what it means to change something, because all they're trying to do is survive the next term.
So let me, before we finish up and I get some closing thoughts from you, let me give you a little perspective from an entrepreneurial behavior perspective. Because now, we're about 1,000 people now into the data that we've been collecting on higher ed employees. And it's somewhere between 60 and 63% of all higher ed people show what we call specialist behavior, which means they're predisposed, pre-wired to be status quo, anti-change, risk averse, and will prefer the consistency of the past, and they'll cling to tradition more than be innovative. So now imagine, and they're in a room together in a governing committee or a governance committee or a working group, right? A majority of the people are going to have this behavior. And then you add the title factor in that you talk about a lot, right? In higher ed. So now your innovators, your more opportunistic thinkers, your more builder-like DNAs are not going to speak up. So because you formed the governance committee, not recognizing how different people are, you've kind of stunted innovation right then and there, which is why, to your point, there could be people sitting around the table. The reason they look and sound alike is because the voices of the specialists are that much stronger than the voice. The innovators are there. The builders are there. The opportunists are there. They just kind of keep quiet going, I've tried this before and I got it crammed down my throat, so I'll just sit through the meeting. Closing thoughts from you on that?
Yeah, I believe that the title element is one of the biggest issues. Everyone believes a title gives you this notion that you're a leader. Your title doesn't make you a leader. It's when you get people to follow you. Yes. And that's what makes you a leader. But the reality of it is today, sitting around the room, you have to bring a diverse set of people that are going to give you and challenge you to think about what is the purpose of what you're doing today? What is the capabilities that we need to have to serve our students? What is it that we have to drive to become a better campus? And sometimes it may mean that what we've been doing isn't right.
Yeah, we're in our own way. The challenge is us, so to speak, in that organization, right? How do we get out of our own way, bring those fresh ideas, listen to them, and move them into production, so to speak?
And there's so many of them in higher ed. I will tell you, and the reason that we have our beehive and so forth, we want to bubble up the leaders inside of campuses because we believe that we can work together to make transformation. Title or no title. You could become a leader in higher ed if you are educated, you understand what the purpose is, you understand what the capabilities and market are, you get exposure to different ideas and thoughts. Join us in this journey of changing higher ed.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Matt. Mondays with Matt, episode 2. We'll see you all next week. And until then, keep it entrepreneurial.